excited about our next guest this evening. Now, depending on how long you've lived in Saskatchewan and your age, this is a man who speaks. In fact, several years ago, he was speaking over 200 times a year to audiences around the world. But in Saskatchewan, he literally needs no introduction. How many of us remember those very early telemiracles? That teenage kid from Yorkton who would come on stage, he'd play the trombone, he'd play a great Buddy Rich Takeoff drum kit, and he had no arms. Alvin Law is a man who has not just taken what some would regard as a disability, but to him, another reason to be an overachiever in life, and he has done remarkable work. I remember in university, a younger sister of mine said, I was gassing up, those days it used to be the Gulf station on 8th Street, and a guy pulled up beside me and he gassed his car up with his feet. And I said, hell, that's Alvin. You know Alvin Law. And Alvin was that kind of figure in Saskatchewan. He went on to literally a career as a much acclaimed motivational speaker. And just as a footnote, since 1976, he's been doing a number of events just like this. And at events he has spoken at, in the aggregate, fundraising for charity over $175 million around North America and the world. And besides, as I keep track of Alvin over the years, he and I both had rich, luxuriant hair in the 70s and even into some point in the 80s. And I now realize he and I are using the same barber. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Alvin Law.
Anybody that steps up and decides to make a difference and takes on the challenge of those that would push you around and bully you, I know a little bit about that. So people are fundamentally fascinated by how I function. And you can well imagine, for me, it's just a little weird. Here's a good one. Can you imagine, for example, how many times I've heard this question? What happened to you? Can you imagine how long ago I got tired of answering that question, yet it happens every single day. And I'm on the plane and I'm sitting beside a lady and she was a little older. I don't want to dictate exactly what that number would be, considering, again, the room we're in, but she was a little older and she was sort of sitting there doing what I call this body language uncomfortable thing. You know, you can always tell when someone's kind of uncomfortable with you, especially when you're me and you're using your feet for everything. And, you know, she just didn't really want to engage in a conversation, and that was fine. But I was a 20-year-old man who was excited about what I was going to do and wanted to talk to people, you know, because that's what I did for a living. You know, the type, you've met them, right? And but no, she just sat there. Oh, fine. So I read my book, and I was, you know, content with that. But about 15 minutes into the plane ride, when the flight attendant came along to offer us our beverages, she finally said a word. And that's exactly what it was. She just looked at me and she said, thalidomide? I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes. Although I don't actually know that because I've never found out factually, but yeah, the guess is pretty, yeah. Why are you asking? Oh, and then she got really chatty. She said, I remember that drug that was given to pregnant women to combat morning sickness in the early 60s. Is that right? I said, yeah. She goes, oh my God, I haven't thought about this for years. She goes, I was pregnant in 1961. I went to my doctor. I wasn't feeling well. I had this horrible morning sickness. And I remember he gave me a sample of this little tiny white pill, and he told me that it was safe. And I took him home, and I put him on the counter, and I stared at him for days. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I needed to make myself feel better, but I also knew that something wasn't right. Oh, and then she got really emotional. She actually started crying. She just looked at me and put her hand on my knee and patted it and said, and thank God, because I was blessed with healthy, normal babies. Now, can you imagine all the ways that I could take that? But the fact is, she was right. Thalidomide was a terrible thing. You talk about drugging and doping. Really, do you know this? Thalidomide is the reason that we have pharmaceutical testing in the world today. It was an interesting thing to look at when considering what this drug did. Deformed babies, of course. Killed babies. Thousands. The estimate is that it might have killed as many as 250,000 babies that they guess. They don't know. Did you know that thalidomide was invented at Auschwitz? True story. It's where they manufactured the whole pharmaceutical composition, because they were doing that in labs all over Germany during the war. The makers of thalidomide, the inventors, never ever were charged with any crimes. They went on to form a company called Grunenthal, and Grunenthal were the first company that gave out thalidomide. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, because I think there's a bit of a connection with Mr. Pound's comments. And his style is obviously different than mine. I'm a little faster, I'm a little louder. Of course, that's what I do. But the fact is, the similarities to me as I was sitting listening to him are, frankly, kind of creepy. Because that was 1960. We probably should have learned a few things about taking drugs. Probably should have learned a few things about pharmaceuticals. And I'm not trying to slam the pharmaceutical industry. That's not what I'm here for. I just find it fascinating when people look at what that drug did and how horrible it was. August 23rd, 1985 was the first time I ever actually thought about how my own mom and dad must have felt the first time they held me. I was born this way. I wonder how that day went. See, I don't think the babies were the victims. I think the moms were the victims. And I think we need to acknowledge on a night like tonight that this is not just a children's hospital. This is a family hospital. This is a place that families will go. And any of you that have experienced this on a personal level know what I'm talking about. It's not easy having a child with special needs, is it? Oh, we go along with it and we all put on our big effort to go out and stick our chest out and think, oh, it's no problem. It's so not true. It is a challenge every single day, especially because we live in a society that acknowledges achievement and success, perfection, body perfect, right? Oh, and by the way, my mom was 55 years old the first time she held me, and my father was 53 years old, and I was an orphan in the Yorkton Hospital where I was born because on the 4th day of my life, my birth family simply signed papers and went home without me. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering, I have met them. Wonderful family. Their last name is Pahalko. They live in Melville. My birth father died in 1982 due to alcoholism that was caused by the drinking that started the day they came home from the hospital without me. My birth mother is Sophie. She's 90. I have a brother Alan. I have a sister Elaine. They have married, been long time kids, siblings. My point is, I think it was fascinating getting to meet my birth family, which I did, by the way, in 1993, but not because I wanted to find my real family, but because I wanted to understand the story and why it happened and why they didn't bring me home. Then the simple explanation was they just couldn't. They were poor. They had very few resources. They were farmers in rural Saskatchewan. They had no power, no running water, 2 small children, and they were struggling. And in 1960, we did not know what we know in 2016, did we? In fact, the love of a woman who did not even give birth to me, who yet went to a hospital at 55 years old and picked me. Who does that? Really, who does that? You know, we hear these terrible stories, John, you've probably covered them, in foster homes that are horrible. We hear the sad stories. Why do we always hear sad stories? How come, what is it with the media that always wants to talk about negativity? I don't understand that part of it. I know what you're thinking. You're going, oh, you're a motivational speaker. You have to be positive. No. I was positive and then became a motivational speaker. But I became positive because of the most influential person of my life, and that was one Hilda Law. Her attitude was astounding. Just the way that she looked at my life. The whole idea behind what I was going to be. A lot of people think that I'm famous because I was on the telethons. But in fact, the truth is I became famous in 1961. I wonder how many of you know this. The Regina Leader-Post actually wrote a full-page article on me that I have in my scrapbook, so I'm not making this up. It's a pretty creepy-looking thing. I'm on the entire front cover of the newspaper. They found out about me. You know, Saskatchewan's a small place. They heard about this baby in Yorkton. But more importantly, thalidomide was breaking news. Well, not really breaking, it was slow breaking back in those days, but you know what, it was breaking news. It was all over the media. They were running articles in Time magazine, Life magazine, and the Regina Leader-Post heard about this little baby in York, and they connected the dots. He didn't have any arms. It's got to be one of those. They actually called it a sighting. You can't make this stuff up. So they came to York, and the photographer took a picture. And there I am on the entire front cover of the Regina Leader Post in December of 1961, wearing nothing but a diaper, and a black photographic bar across my eyes so nobody will recognize who I am. Really? So then the reporter sits on her couch and he stares at me for the longest time, and finally he opens his mouth, and this is exactly, and I quote what he said, "I never thought I'd see one of these." I can't believe how uncomfortable I am, Mrs. Law. I just can't stop looking. It's just so terrible. I'm a journalist, I've seen terrible things, but this is so disgusting. I'm sorry, Mrs. Law, I'm just trying to think about what this baby's life is going to be like. We live in a cruel world. But I should be asking you questions. How do you feel? You're raising him. How's it feel to be raising a baby without arms? Here's Mom's answer. Notice the tone. That's a dumb question. How do you think it feels? It's weird. Wouldn't it be weird? How do we pick up a baby? By the arms, right? He gets dropped a lot. She actually said that. Excuse me? Yeah, just a couple of times. I didn't mean it. He says, "Are you serious?" No, I'm not serious. But, sir, could you just lighten up a little bit? Pardon? Could you just lighten up a little bit? Well, I don't think this is a lighten up story. Well, I guess it depends on where you're sitting. See, I don't see it as tragic at all. I see the possibilities. It's just how I see it. There's a good thing in this? Absolutely. Well, I want to hear this. Well, he's starting to use his toes for fingers and his feet for hands. Well, how'd you teach him that? He taught us. He's a baby. Baby, she says, "Watch." She goes, "Pay attention." I walked in his room one morning. He was dangling his favorite teddy bear between his first and second toe by its left ear. "So what'd you do?" The poor son said, "I stared. What do you think I did? Weirdest looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life." So am I embarrassed by my body? I used to be. Until I started understanding that we are not our physical being. We are our spiritual nature. Aren't we? I don't know. Just a thought. You don't have to agree with me. And I'm not suggesting if you put a lot of emphasis on your physicality that you're wrong. I'm just saying when you're defined by two missing arms, you're being defined by the wrong thing. And that's what my mom saw. See, that was just my blessing, wasn't it? Because everyone's, "Oh, it's so sad your family didn't want you." No, it's not sad at all. Well, what's amazing is that I landed in the home that I did, with the kind of people that became my role models, my mentors, my educators. But I don't want you, at least I'm going to suggest this, to feel sorry for these sick children. That doesn't work. It's the wrong emotion. You understand? Now, empathy, that is a different word completely. Sympathy and empathy do not exist in the same sentence, in my opinion. We have empathy for people, so we give to causes so that they can bring themselves out of their own challenges. It's just one of the ways I look at it. But I'm not a pianist. I don't really play. I'm just warning you, there's no surprise coming, okay? But it represents to me a symbol for my life that was the first thing that ever made me think that maybe someday I could have joy. Because isn't that really a great motivator? To not think that you're going to overcome something that is impossible to overcome, but to totally believe that someday you can have your own level of happiness, not based on anyone else's standards, but just based on your own. In other words, we don't need Mr. Pound to win a gold medal at an Olympic Games or climb a mountain or win a Grey Cup or a Stanley Cup, awesome ideas, to be a champion. All we need is to believe that maybe there's more to us than what we see when we take a first look, you know? See, I was not athletic. You could probably agree with that one, right? Sports wasn't my thing. This is not about me. You do understand that, I hope. I really mean it. I'm not trying to be humble. This has never been about me. This was what my mom taught me. Someday, Alvin, you will be a good teacher of people. You will remind them of things that we already know. And you will show them through your life actions. But not only that, son, you will hopefully inspire those that are wounded, are disabled, and are sick. But life doesn't always have to go that way. You know, there's always one way to look at things, isn't there? And that's okay, I respect that. The lady in the kitchen who said I'd never played music, I'm sure she was right. Said my toes were too short, I'm sure she was right. And then one day I just sat down and went, What if she wasn't? Well, let's just say it. God's been on my side, hasn't he? I always felt this little weight on my shoulder that's a good weight. My little guardian angel that follows me around everywhere I go. And reminds me that I am not cursed. I am blessed. And that's legit. That's not platitudes or hyperbole. So that song has always represented that to me. To live in gratitude constantly. To wake up every morning saying thank you for my life. Thank you for everything, even the bad stuff, because we all got bad stuff. And I gave the song a name. It's called The Ode to the Old Bag Who Said My Toes Were Too Short. So when we have these visions, what we believe we can do, they're not silly, they're not childish, they're not immature, they're dreams. Dreams come true. Dreams don't come true by themselves. So we work together. We go slow, one step at a time, one step at a time. Before you know it. All right, you can clap for that if you like. But you know, tonight is special. Because you're here for an organization that believes in how much you can make a difference by being positive, by being effective in our communities, by trying to make a difference, even though the subject is a negative one. I simply want to say thank you. Thank you to the Knights of Columbus, who I've known as an organization my entire life. Thank you to everybody who paid a lot of money to be here tonight. To all of you that bought auction items, to all of you that bought silent auction items, don't forget to go get them and pay for them. But here's the deal. For all of you believing that the impossible can happen, you're making it happen. God bless you. Thanks for being here tonight.